What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of Love and Marriage Huntsville Season 5, Episode 1. What the hell happened to Season 4 reunion? Did I miss it? What the hell's going on? I thought that we were going to start with a continuation of season 4, but they made this its own season completely, and season 4 just ended abruptly with no reunion, no nothing. But here we are. So let's get the miscellaneous people out of the way before we go into the couples retreat. Martell picks up his mom to go take her to see the grandkids or something, and it's the children's last day of school. So him and his mom are talking about what they love to talk about the most, which is Melody. And the mom says that she doesn't want Melody or Melody's mother talking about her or on social media. So evidently there's like the social media thing going on between Melody, her mom Vanessa, and Martell's mom. I don't think Martell's mom is on social media like that, but I guess she has seen some messages or whatever that Melody or her mother or Melody and her mother have put on social media regarding her. And Martell says that he wants Melody and his mother to have a conversation about this and, to kind of like air out their differences. Melody, on the other hand, she goes to see Storm. Is her name Storm or Stormy? It's been so long, y'all. I had literally forgotten some of these people's names. I had to look them up online. Melody went to go see Storm, or is it Stormy? I think her name is Stormy. And Stormy is in her meditation room. And so Melody says that she hasn't spoken to Martell's mom since 2021. And she says that Melody's mom had said some things to her that were not true. She had said that Melody was a lazy wife and that Martell was the one that was doing all the work and Melody was just, lollygagging around. And I don't know why Martell's mom would say that about Melody, if that's even true that she said that, because who knows? Because Melody has been a go-getter, motivated person, ambitious person since she came out the womb. Melody has never, I don't see at any part in Melody's life that she would have ever give the impression that she was lazy. Melody seems like she just was born active and motivated and looking for something to do. So that just really doesn't make any sense that Martell's mom would say that, because if she knows Melody, and I know that she knows Melody because her son was with Melody for a very long time, she knows that Melody is not like that. So unless, Melody can tell us that she heard those words come out of Martell's mother's mouth, I'm just not going to believe it, because if you know Melody, I don't even know her that well. I just know what I see on TV, and that woman looks like a go-getter. So that doesn't make any sense. Melody says that she can definitely be cordial with Martell's mom, but it's not going to be like the way it was. She talks about how she has to get rid of toxic people. She has to protect her space. And Martell's mom is a casualty of that. So she's going to be one of those people that she's going to be loving from a distance. Now let's get into this couples retreat with Dr. Francis. So at this couples retreat, the first couple to arrive are Lewis and Tiffany. No, was it Luke? No, excuse me. I take it back. The first couple to arrive was Kimmy and Maurice. They were the first couple to show up. And then Lewis and Tiffany arrived. And Marceau and Tisha were taking a very long time to get there. So while they were waiting for Marceau and Tisha, Tiffany gets up because she had to go take a business call or something, or do a business meeting. And Dr. Francis really didn't like that. And Dr. Francis was kind of like, you know what, you're here to help your marriage, and work, you should have left that by the wayside. And Tiffany's like, it's really important, I couldn't move things around, or whatever she said. So she goes to the back room to take her business call. And Dr. Francis looked at Lewis like, that's your wife that doesn't have time to fix her damn marriage. She'd rather put her job, ahead of everything else. And Lewis was like, I tried to tell her, blah, blah, blah. He kind of seemed like he also agreed with Dr. Francis that Tiffany wasn't making this a priority. But when Tiffany was there, it seemed like he kind of flipped. And he was like, oh, I understood that she had to do that. She explained to me that she had to do that business call or whatever. So Dr. Francis, he's kind of like calling Tiffany out for her actions, but he's really brewing about Marceau and Tisha being late because Dr. Francis seems like a no nonsense, kind of guy. Like when he says be here at a certain time, you better be there by a certain time. He's ready to get things started. You're wasting his time. So when Marceau and Tisha finally show up, can you believe that Dr. Francis and his wife were waiting for them outside on the damn porch? Like Dr. Francis was just chomping at the bit to get at Marceau and Tisha. So he's out there waiting on them. And he can tell that Tisha looks really upset about something. And they explain, by the way, as they were approaching the retreat, Kimmy had called Tisha to find out, like, where the hell are you? What's going on? And Kimmy had mentioned that, Dr. Francis is here waiting for y'all. And Marceau was like, Dr. Francis is there? Because he had no idea that this was a therapy thing, like a marital therapy session at this retreat. He had no idea because his wife does what she always does to get her way. She has to lie to him. She can't be upfront with him because he always has a very negative reaction. So she had to lie to Marceau. He had no idea that they were coming there for therapy, but whatever. So when they finally get there, they explained to Dr. Francis that the reason why they were late was because they had gotten some really bad news that one of Tisha's really good college friends had passed away. So they're not in the mental space for this at all. And I'm thinking, if y'all are going through something so tragic like that, why wouldn't you have canceled the retreat? But you know what? When it comes to grief, y'all, one thing I've learned in this YouTube world is that you cannot question how other people grieve. Because if you question how other people handle tragic news, you get called out for being insensitive and leave them alone, and people grieve in different ways. So I'm going to leave that all the way the hell alone. So they show up, they explain Dr. Francis exactly what happened. And I felt like Dr. Francis was so frustrated with Marceau and Tisha, but he couldn't take out his frustration on them. So he brought Tiffany back to the front of the class and he got on her one more time about her taking that damn business call. That's how I felt. How I felt like Dr. Francis was feeling. Like he was angry at Marceau and Tisha, but he couldn't do nothing about that anger except take it out on Tiffany. So Dr. Francis, let me see if he talked to them about anything before they did the rope thing. Oh, so Dr. Francis, he has them do a rope exercise where you tie your feet together with your partner, just one foot, and then you have to walk around for 15 minutes. And this is an exercise to see how, because this is a very awkward, it's an awkward position to be in, to have your foot tied to someone else and to have to walk. And so you have to figure out how y'all are going to do it. And so Dr. Francis is going to be observing them to see how do they handle this, little conflict? How do they resolve this? How do they figure out how to maneuver this new way of walking? And he said that Tisha and Marceau, they came out with flying colors because they've been together for so long. So they learned very quickly on how to move together. And Maurice and Kimmy struggled. Maurice wanted to be the lead. And Kimmy said that she felt like Maurice was like holding her too tight. And in the confessional, Maurice said, well, yeah, if I was holding her too tight, I should have just let her go. And Kimmy was like, you don't have to let me go. You could have just loosened up your grip a little bit. I wasn't trying to tell you just to let me go. I was like trying to let you know just to kind of loosen up your grip. And then Lewis and I think, what's her name? And Tiffany, I think they probably had done the worst of all the couples. Dr. Francis had noticed that they were very distant from one another. Dr. Francis then tells them, this is not a fun retreat. We're not here for fun. We are here to change marriages. So at dinner, Tiffany shares that she that she was adopted as a child. She was put in the foster care system from birth. Her parents struggled with addictions or struggled with something. And she also shares that her adopted parents also struggled with drugs. And so they talk about Tiffany's fear of loss and her fear of abandonment, and maybe her desire to have a child stems from that. Which to me, I was kind of confused because Tiffany has a child. So, was Dr. Francis trying to say her need to have another child comes from her fear of being abandoned and this fear of loss, of losing people in her life? Because Tiffany has a child. So, Tiffany says in her confessional that she admits that she does have a fear of being alone and of being abandoned, and that she had never heard anyone refer to her life experiences as a loss, because she lost her biological parents. They gave her up. She lost that sense of security, I guess, from her adoptive parents. She lost her first marriage, ended up in divorce, so she lost that. So she has these series of losses, and she said that she had never seen her life, she had never seen these experiences she would never have categorized them as losses. This was the first time that she'd ever heard them referred to as that. Marceau then asks Tiffany and Louis how they would fit a newborn baby into their schedule because they're very busy people. And Tiffany says that she's always functioned in chaos. And to me, that made sense. What she said made sense. It doesn't matter if I agree or not, but I knew where she was coming from. Like, her life has always been chaotic, but she finds a way to get things done that she needs to get done. She finds a way to prioritize the things that need priority, even though her life is chaotic. And so then Marceau says, so you'll bring a baby into chaos. And I'm like, Marceau, what are you doing? What are you doing? What do you mean by that? That they have a chaotic life because they're very busy people. She has a successful career. He has his own business. They're doing all these things, that they're going to have a baby and the baby's just going to get lost in the shuffle. No, they're going to prioritize their child, like the way they prioritize, the son. They're going to make time. They're going to make room for their child. Like, what are you talking about, Marceau? So then Marceau says, Louis, are you going to be getting more or less intimate with your wife after having a baby? And Louis says, well, with a newborn, life happens, so I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be more. And then Dr. Francis says that he notices how Louis speaks from like a real philosophical point of view. Like, he doesn't speak like from his own point of view. He has this really lofty philosophical way of saying things. And Dr. Francis says that Louis talks like that to avoid being vulnerable, which in turn means that he's trying to protect himself from feeling any kind of pain. Louis automatically disagreed. He says, no, I'm very open. I'm very vulnerable, because going through a divorce, you have to be open and vulnerable, and you have to be able to feel the pain. And so then Kimmy says, okay, Dr. Francis has 46 years of being married under his belt. And he's an expert in marital counseling. And he's trying to give you advice, and you're automatically just like shutting it down, not willing to listen, not willing to take in what he's trying to say. Louis disagreed with Kimmy. And Kimmy says in her confessional, they seem very resistant when it comes to receiving advice, but they're very good at giving advice. And this is the reason why she considers them not being 100% transparent. Because last season, or the season before, when Tiffany first appeared on the scene, that was Kimmy's whole thing, that Tiffany and Louis were not transparent at all, even though they wanted everybody else to spill their guts. Dr. Francis says that the Whitlows are not who they seem to portray, and they took that to heart. Tiffany and Louis took that to heart. So Tiffany was like, what do you mean we don't seem like what we portray? And Dr. Francis says that, y'all are playing a game. But then when it's discovered that y'all are playing the game, you want to make it look like that you're not playing that game at all. So you're kind of doing like the old switcheroo on people. You want to appear one way, and then when people call you out, or when it's discovered that you're putting up a front, you're going to act like that you never even did put up that front. That's how I understood it. That's how I took it. I could be wrong. So Louis says, so what you're saying is our marriage is just an act. And that is where that episode ended. So for starters, this first episode going in, it was okay. Very heavy on the psychotherapy. It was just It was okay. It was just okay. I don't know what the hell Lewis and Tiffany are doing. I don't know if Dr. Francis is right about them or not right about them. Um, I don't know. It's too soon to tell. I have my my opinions on Lewis and Tiffany, because it didn't make any sense to me. Like last season, their biggest thing was not enough intimacy. Lewis complained that Tiffany was not giving him enough of her time, that she was like a little worker bee. It was just work, 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 work. And then when she wasn't working, she was running around with Melody trying to find her biological father. All kinds of craziness was going on. So Lewis felt like, you're not giving me enough attention. And to me, the solution was really simple. Okay, your husband wants more physical attention and you want a baby. What's the problem? Why don't you give him the physical attention so you can get your baby? So that's how I've always felt about Tiffany and Lewis. They kind of confuse me a little bit. I don't know if they're being upfront and real or if everything is just a front. I have no idea. Time will tell, because it's been so long since the show was on the air that have forgotten a lot of stuff and how I felt about people. But that's where we're going to stop for now, and we shall continue on the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate you spending your time with me. On your way out, don't forget to rate the video, and if you like this content, please subscribe, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.